Welcome into the Women's Basketball Podcast. Yes, summer may be here, WNBA season in full swing, and we are back. Mia O'Brien, SB Nation's one and only Mitchell Northam. Mitch, we record this podcast on the Tuesday, the 17th of June. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Getting ready to head into some vacation protocols, but right now, we're all good. WNBA season, churning along, and we're getting some more scheduling news about the college season. We're going to get into that a little bit, and yeah, it's been good. Good summer so far.
That's why I led off with it is June 17th, but we are still here on the Women's Basketball Podcast. I'm fresh off vacation. Mitch is headed off on vacation. We're still going to effort to get you guys at least one episode per week. Sometimes it may be Mitch and a guest. Sometimes it might be me and a guest. So just want to make sure, don't worry, we're not going anywhere, especially with the W season heating up. And so many of you entering the NFL dead period, the dog days of baseball season. You're getting into the W. Kaitlyn Clark is back, so now you care again.
Indeed.
For some of you, you never left, which is why we love you all as well. And so here we are with your one-stop shop for all things women's basketball. Mitch, let's begin, as we do each and every week, with this week's Her of the Week. This one, I don't know if we've ever actually given, in the almost 1 year history of this show, Angel Reese Her of the Week honors. We did once upon a time do the Angel Reese McDonald's challenge. We did do that live on a podcast. But I don't think we've given her a Her of the Week. So congrats to Angel, who is the second youngest player in WNBA history to record their first triple-double. The other ones up there, but no one's counting. If you're watching this, that's Kaitlyn Clark over my shoulder, always over Angel Reese's shoulder. Angel also filed a trademark earlier this week, Mitch, for a word that we discussed a little bit last week that's gained a lot of traction on the internet. That is the word me-bound. That is what so many have likened her missed shot turned into a rebound, and then she has lots of rebounds, but they're actually me-bounds. I'm fascinated to see exactly what this definition looks like, not only in Urban Dictionary, but wherever she files this copyright.
Yeah, I enjoyed her TikTok video that she made explaining, hey, whoever came up with me-bounds, that's brilliant. That's genius. Also, I'm going to try and make money off of it now, by the way. I really like Angel Reese. It's not just the Maryland thing, shout out to Baltimore, but I'm a big fan of her. I like that she is just unapologetically herself at all times. I like that she talks trash. I like that she plays the game her way. And I like that she is willing to lean into the villain role a little bit. I love all that stuff about her. As I've said before, you can appreciate both Kaitlyn Clark and Angel Reese at the same time. Like, you don't have to be a fan of one and hate the other. It's really just like, what kind of basketball do you enjoy watching? Like, if you want a Steph Curry, if you want a Larry Bird, there's Kaitlyn Clark, right? If you want to watch Dennis Rodman or Ben Wallace, we got Angel Reese for you, because she is the queen of rebound right now. She is, for the second year in a row, leading the league in total rebounds, leading the league in offensive rebounds. She's also 12th in steals. So things are, she's playing her game, and I think that, not everybody has to play basketball the same way, and we can like different things about different players. And Angel Reese, the queen of rebound, the queen of me-bound, perhaps.
And because we can't talk about Angel Reese without talking about Kaitlyn Clark, that seems like a logical place to begin this week's starting five. Sorry I had to, Mitch. We walked our way right into that one. Final score from Gainbridge Fieldhouse: Indiana Fever 102, the New York Liberty, yes, the then undefeated no more New York Liberty, the reigning WNBA champs, 88. Kaitlyn Clark, 32 points in 31 minutes, 8 boards, 9 assists, flirted with a triple-double of her own. Look, Mitch, I don't think if you're the W, if you're Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner, if you're ESPN, you couldn't have asked for much more in CC22's return to the floor after a 5-game absence. I think for me, though, the reason we have to start here is not just because the back-to-back-to-back threes, the 25 points, a career high in the first half, led every single sports program this weekend, even with the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup going on, and the College World Series, too, by the way. Shout out to Omaha. Shout out to the Midwest. We love the Midwest. I think that it has to be agenda item number one in this week's starting five because the Fever look like a different team when Kaitlyn is on the floor. And it sounds so elementary to say, I'm going to give you the floor. Explain like why this is a thing, because it's not just the, oh, well, she scores 32 points. Obviously that changes the trajectory. It's the fact that Aaliyah Boston had 5 less shots per game in the 5 contests that Kaitlyn missed. And all of a sudden, that first bucket she had, you saw the smile on Aaliyah's face. When Kelsey Mitchell got her first bucket of the game, it was on an assist from Kaitlyn. Both of those came in the first 2 scores for Indiana. And you saw the smile, the relief, okay, we're back to playing Indiana basketball.
Yeah, I think it can really kind of be boiled down if we want to make it really simple. Kaitlyn Clark is the bus driver of this team. And not just that, like, she's the engine that kind of makes everything go. She is that, and she is the best scorer and the best passer on the team, but she is also the person who dictates the flow and dictates how every offensive possession is going to go. She's going to touch the ball on every offensive possession. And I think that when she was out for those couple games, the Fever were missing that. It's not that they don't have somebody on their team that could be a bus driver. It's that they really haven't had many reps doing that. Like, they've always looked to her all last season, all this season. So you talk about, the players who have kind of been left over, your Kelsey Mitchells and your Aaliyah Bostons, like, they looked for Kaitlyn to dictate the flow and to, okay, what are you doing on this possession? Are you about to pull up for a logo 3, or do I need to come around and set a pick and we can kind of run something and get me, Aaliyah Boston, a shot at the rim? Or Kelsey Mitchell, can you flare out over here and I'll get you the ball over here? I think they were just missing sort of that maestro of the offense that Kaitlyn Clark is. And I think all the new players that came into the Fever this season were looking forward to playing with her in that way. Like, playing with someone who can dictate everything, who attracts so much attention. So, your DeWanna Bonners and your Sophie Cunninghams, they were expecting to kind of play in that flow as well. So I think not having her around for a bit just kind of shook that up some, and they didn't really know how to handle it. So my kind of overall big takeaway from that game is just like, all right, well, like, as long as Kaitlyn Clark is on the floor, they're going to be fine. They beat the New York Liberty, who were previously undefeated. Not only did they do that, but she had that ridiculous sequence of, 3 threes in 45 seconds or something like that. She hits that step back in Brianna Stewart's grill, and they laugh about it as they go down the court, which I thought was great. As long as she's on the court, I think they're a contender. If something happens to her again and she has to miss more meaningful time, hopefully not, knock on wood, they will be in trouble again.
Hopefully you didn't hear the ESPN ad that played as I was trying to pull up the box score here during this recording. But my one point that I was trying to make, and thus why I was trying to pull up the box score, hopefully we don't get another ad read. I don't know if there's a way to stop that, but hopefully it doesn't pop up. I was curious. You didn't hear it?
No.
Okay, good. We like that. I was curious your thoughts on, obviously, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Lexi Hull, Kaitlyn Clark, like that quartet. We saw that it is the core of the Indiana Fever last year. It has remained the core, especially with, as we discussed on last week's episode, if you want to go back and listen to that one, folks, Lexi Hull potentially going to win Most Improved Player, 6th Woman of the Year. Her ascension, along with Aaliyah Boston's ascension into a top 10, top 15 player in the league, leading the league in field goal percentage. I think all of that's really beneficial. There has been some chatter among the Fever fan base, and it should be noted DeWanna Bonner did not play due to personal reasons in this game. She's been ruled out of tonight's game. We are recording this podcast again on Tuesday as the Fever are about to play. She's been ruled out of tonight's game for personal reasons as well. Natasha Howard right now has been the 5th player in that starting lineup, and Fever fans have been clamoring for, is that the most effective 5th in that starting 5? Versus, should you be giving a KK Thompson a little bit more run? Should you be going super guard heavy, playing Sophie Cunningham? Should, Damiris Dantas be getting more of a run? Like, I think that Fever fans have been frustrated with how Natasha fits in the puzzle, which is kind of funny because I felt like in the games where Kaitlyn did not play, if they didn't have Natasha Howard, I don't think that they're all that competitive, although she certainly has been hot or cold during her return to Indiana.
Yeah, I think if it were me, I guess we'll take DeWanna Bonner out of this, because I think if DeWanna Bonner is available, you start DeWanna Bonner in that Natasha Howard, 3-4 sort of flex spot. If you don't have her, I would maybe try going guard heavy. I mean, there are a lot of teams in the league that sort of lean into a small ball sort of lineup, and start Sophie Cunningham. Sophie Cunningham is a bigger guard. I think she's capable of, guarding threes and fours. And I think Aaliyah Boston is more than capable of holding her own, down in the paint against whatever the league has to offer in terms of post players. So I kind of wonder, if you look at kind of the minutes breakdown, Sophie Cunningham was fifth in minutes played in this game with 24. So I kind of wonder if maybe that's the direction that they might be leaning.
Yeah, I think part of it is, this Indiana Fever team was so committed to, we need a rim runner. We need to allow Aaliyah Boston to play a little bit more of a four, not having to be
Sure.
truly that back to the basket center, because she has developed more of a mid-range game. But ultimately, ABCC, folks, the two-man pick and roll between Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark is one of the most aesthetically pleasing basketball plays, not just women's basketball plays, folks.
Yes.
Sport going right now. So just
Love it.
enjoy it while we can. All right, a quick foray into the college basketball ranks for number 2 in this week's starting five, Mitch.
Yeah. So earlier this week, we got, I guess last week rather, we got the slate of games unveiled for the ACC SEC Challenge. And it's kind of, I think to me, it's headlined by the biggest one is LSU at Duke, which is going to be Thursday, December 4th. This is the third year of this challenge. Duke gets a home game here after going to South Carolina last year. But to me, like, if you look at all the, different matchups and stuff, I think that is the biggest one. Thankful that it's in my backyard. I get to go to this game, which is going to be a lot of fun. I looked it up, and LSU and Duke haven't played each other in like 15 years. Most famously, they met in a Final Four back when Simone Augustus was still playing and Gail Gestencourt was coaching at Duke. So, like, there is a little bit of history, between these two programs, despite them not meeting, super often. But that is the one where, when it's kind of funny, I got a little scoop. I had heard the night before that LSU at Duke was locked in, and I was working on kind of writing up a story at SB Nation just for some inside baseball for our fans here. And as soon as I hit publish on that story, then the release came out from the ACC and SEC. So I had a scoop for maybe 2 minutes, and then their release came out. And
Hang the banner; it flies forever.
I no longer had a scoop. But there are some other good matchups here, I think. NC State is going to go to Oklahoma. I think that Oklahoma is going to have a bit more spotlight on it this year, a bit more eyes on it. Not only, are you running it back with Reagan Beers, but you have the number one recruit in the country there, and Leah Chavez. So I think that this is kind of a make or break year, for Oklahoma to like really truly break through. Like, can you actually compete for an SEC title? Can you get further than the Sweet 16? We'll see. They have some good players on that team, though. So I think that's a matchup to watch. Some other kind of NCAA tournament teams versus other NCAA tournament teams. South Carolina is going to Louisville. I think that will be a win for South Carolina, but, a test for Louisville nonetheless. Notre Dame at Ole Miss is a pretty interesting, I think maybe the second or third best matchup we have here. A lot of eyes are going to be on Ole Miss after all the players that they brought into the portal, and a lot of eyes on Notre Dame for all the players that they didn't bring in the portal.
Isn't that going to be a revenge game for one of those players?
Do we have a crossover?
I thought there was a crossover there. Did I miss out on? Did I miss that? I got to look that one up.
We had Kate Koval go to LSU.
Maybe I'm getting my SEC schools confused.
Yeah, that's okay. And then the other one that I think is a big one is North Carolina is going to play at Texas. And those three big ones, LSU at Duke, Notre Dame and Ole Miss, and North Carolina at Texas, are all on Thursday night. So I'm kind of curious to see like what the time slots are for those games. Interesting note about the UNC Texas matchup. When I did some FOIA work on UNC a couple weeks ago. One of the emails that I got back in this batch of documents that I got was somebody from ESPN emailing Bubba Cunningham back in February.
Jordan Hudson.
No.
Just kidding.
Gauging the women's basketball program's interest in setting up a non-conference game with Texas that would be at a quasi-neutral site. It would have been in Dallas or Houston, at just a non-conference game for this coming December, and it would have been on ESPN's networks, and they might have attached some fancy name to it or something, but it would have been a one-off non-conference game. So obviously that didn't happen, but I think it's interesting because ESPN does have a say in these matchups, since they have an ownership stake in the ACC network and the SEC network, and all of these games are either on one of those two channels or ESPN or ESPN2. So they got the matchup anyways. So I think that's
hopefully they just turn around to both institutions and they say, okay, Texas, maybe you go schedule, I don't know, Notre Dame, maybe North Carolina, you go schedule Arkansas, Alabama.
Yeah.
I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't schedule another cupcake. Like, we appreciate our mid majors and our low majors, but please don't do that.
Yeah. So I wonder if there is another, if ESPN has something in the works for like a mid-December matchup. I don't know if that will involve Texas or not. The other question I have is, the past couple of years, North Carolina, Florida, Oklahoma, and Michigan have all played in this thing in Charlotte called the Jumpman Invitational. And that ended last year. That was the last year of it, I was told. I was told that the Charlotte Sports Foundation is working on another women's basketball event for December, but I haven't heard anything yet. So keep an eye out for some more scheduling news.
And maybe that will be Mitch's next big scoop. Just saying.
Perhaps. We'll see.
Will Texas have another standalone special game through its partnership with the mothership? Let's keep it moving in this week's starting five. At number 3, this is a player who we've discussed week in and week out, Mitch. That is Napheesa Collier, currently the leading scorer in the WNBA. Are we not speaking her name enough? I think there is an argument to be made. She had more points in the first half against the Los Angeles Sparks than the Los Angeles Sparks, She had 26 points. That's the most points she's had in any half of her career, in addition to outscoring the opposition. And look, I just think that it's one of those things where it's kind of been ho-hum with the Minnesota Lynx. We've just said, they finally lost a game, but they're one of the best teams. They went to the WNBA finals last year, yada, yada, yada. And I don't think we're giving nearly enough credit to what Fee Collier has been able to do, not just this season so far with this team, but what she's done since being drafted and just evolving her game year in and year out. And I don't know. I want to make sure we gave Fee some love because I feel like we don't talk about her enough. And that's certainly because Mitch did place a bet that Kelsey Plum would lead the W in scoring. And obviously we stand the reigning New York Liberty, the reigning WNBA champs. We stand the Caitlin Clark extravaganza, but we also stand Fee Collier.
Yeah, I would like for Napheesa Collier to score a little bit less just for my wallet. But no, I totally agree with you. And I have found the conversation around Napheesa Collier on Twitter, specifically about her MVP candidacy, I found it to be pretty weird. It feels to me like a lot of people are grasping for straws, trying to come up with excuses on like why she shouldn't be the MVP, and I just don't really understand that. Like, just accept it. Right now, I don't really know who else you can make an argument for. She is the best player in the WNBA right now on June 17th. That could change once we get to September. But right now, I mean, she leads the league in scoring. She's the best player on one of the two best teams in the league. She's, again, I think, putting together a candidacy for Defensive Player of the Year as well. She's top 10 in defensive rating. She's 4th in blocks. She's 2nd in steals. She's 5th in rebounding. Like, I don't know where you can, like, put a knock on her game. Like, she's doing everything really well right now. I think she is the best player in the WNBA right now. And again, like, that could change by the time we get to the end of September. But, as it currently stands, I don't really see a challenger to her as the MVP. Like, A'ja Wilson has battled some injuries. Caitlin Clark has battled some injuries. You can make a case, I think, for Alicia Gray if you really want to go in that direction. She's been a big reason why Atlanta has been so awesome this year. And maybe you can make a case for someone like Brianna Stewart or Sabrina Ionescu, but I think they maybe kind of cancel each other out in terms of like an MVP conversation. So yeah, I think that Fee is far and away the best player in the league right now.
Which, if you had heard that when she was coming out of school, so 2019, I think she went what, seventh overall, sixth overall, or was it even, or did she go in the second round? I mean, it's astounding when you consider the evolution of her game. Not that she wasn't a good college player. I mean, she was part of a big three of her own, but I do think that it's interesting. We've now gotten to this point 6 years later where she has truly developed into the best player in the league, as opposed to maybe a Brianna Stewart or even a Caitlin Clark, where they emerged immediately. And Sabrina Ionescu, to an extent, obviously only played 3 games her rookie year.
Yeah, she was the 6th overall
Mm-hmm.
pick in 2019 behind Jackie Young, A.D. Durr, Tierra McCowan, Katie Lou Samuelson, her teammate, and Arike Ogunbowale. I
Which
think
it should be noted too, at this juncture 1 year ago, Arike Ogunbowale, probably outside of Asia Wilson, is winning MVP in the WNBA. At this point 1 year ago, because she faded down the stretch. The Wings obviously were picking in the lottery, but ultimately at the same time, like, you could not deny that she was one of the top 2 scorers in the league until they went the other way.
Oh yeah, I mean a year ago I wrote a column at For the Win that basically said instead of complaining about Caitlin Clark not being on the national team, we should be complaining about Arike Ogunbowale not being there. Yeah, she had a great first month and a half last year, and then things kind of teetered out.
Right. And so that's where I don't want to say like Fee is winning the MVP award, but we are trending in that direction. Wanted to make sure that we
Certainly,
addressed
yeah.
that.
I
Wanted
think
to
if
make sure.
you redo that 2019 draft, I think Fee probably goes number one ahead of Jackie Young and ahead of Arike. And then, I was just kind of thinking back, since you mentioned like that UConn team, that last one that she played on in 2018-19, that was really like that was the first Final Four I ever covered, and UConn made it there. But really, like, that was a team kind of without like real star power. Like, we all understood that Napheesa Collier and Kaylou Samuelson and Crystal Dangerfield,
Yep.
and they were all good players and all Americans, but I don't think any of us thought of them as like bona fide stars like we did some of the other players of that Final Four, like Sabrina Ionescu or
Megan
Arike Ogunbowale.
Gustafson
Yeah, Megan
in the Elite
Gustafson.
Eight, but still.
Sure, yeah, but like that tournament, yeah, certainly. Like, they didn't exactly have that star power, and in earlier in Fee's career at UConn, she was kind of playing in Stewie's shadow a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, this is really, I think, the first time last year going into this year. She wins Defensive Player of the Year. They make the finals. She wins a gold medal with Team USA. She's the owner of Unrivaled. She has, the shoe coming out with the Jordan brand soon. Everything is kind of trending upwards for Napheesa Collier. I think like her stock has never really been as high as it is right now.
She and the Lynx will face the Las Vegas Aces later tonight as we're recording. They also will have another rematch with Kelsey Plum and the Sparks on Saturday. Let's keep it moving. Staying in the W. Man, this one really bummed me out, but I am glad that we're addressing it head on in this week's starting 5, Mitch.
Yeah, I think just straight up, like, I'll just cut to it. The WNBA needs to gather all of its teams up and the communications people who work for those teams and tell them to stop giving credentials to Outkick. I think there's a reason why Outkick had a hard time getting a credential to, I believe it was an Atlanta Dream game earlier this year. The Atlanta Dream said, no, thank you. I don't know that the NCAA denied them a credential, but I did not see Outkick at the NCAA tournament this year, though they were there the year before in both Albany and in Cleveland. I think it comes down to this: like, the WNBA wants us to take them seriously, like a Big Four league, like an NFL, an NBA, an NHL, and MLB. Those places deny people credentials all the time. I think it's time that the WNBA kind of starts acting like a grown-up, legitimate league. The players have voiced concerns over and over again. It's a reason why there's no open locker rooms anymore in the WNBA, supposedly. Like they're a little concerned about like the relationship between players and media. And I don't think you're doing them any favors by credentialing an outlet that, quite frankly, does not care about the games, does not care about the players, does not care about the storylines, doesn't care about the fans of the league. Outkick is not there to do X's and O's and or analysis or even just like general keeping track of the league comings and goings. They're there to stir up outrage and to stir the pot and to provoke anger. I mean, that's all they were. So, what kind of stems from all this for our listeners is Outkick got a credential to a Washington Mystics game that the Atlanta Dream were playing at. And seemingly the only reason why they were there is so they could get in Brittany Griner's face and ask her if she basically called Caitlin Clark an effing white girl while, in mad about a foul or whatever it was. I mean, this clip is like a month old now. This happened sometime, back in May. And, Brittany Griner shut it down pretty quickly. I mean, handled that interview as best as she could. I just don't see, I don't know what the positive thing for the WNBA is to keep credentialing this outlet. Like they have proven time and time again that this is what they're there for, that they're there to poke the players and to stir the pot and provoke outrage. This is what they did the NCAA tournament last year when they were, asking Dawn Staley about transgender players and the whole thing. Like this is the only reason why they're there. And I'm not saying that those questions are out of bounds, but they need to come from a sincere place and perhaps come from people who are there often, not just people who parachute in to do this kind of work.
And to just get clicks and headlines. And
yeah,
for me, there's two ways of looking at this, Mitch. The first is I applaud the W for, number one, overarching 30,000 foot view being an inclusive space. Always has been. Perhaps that's why there's been some pushback for the mainstream wanting to have a piece of this sport and of this lane. And I understand that pushback, and moments like this are why there is that pushback. Not that Outkick is the mainstream, but this idea of the outside trying to come into what was a safe haven. At the same time, self-awareness, I have long said, independent of sports, independent of this podcast, self-awareness is the most underrated quality that you can have as a human being in 2025. Please be more self-aware, WNBA, PR teams. Like, you know why they're there. Like, this is with all due respect to the folks who work at Outkick, but like, we know why you're here. You are not regularly covering this team. You are here because you want some sort of salacious headline.
Yes.
Just keep it moving. We all understand. We know why you're here. And
the goal of that was to create a viral clip. Yeah. Like they wanted to provoke Brittany Griner into saying something wild. And again, like she handled that the best way she could have. Very professional, all that stuff. But that's what they wanted out of that interaction.
Let's end this week's starting five with a little bit happier news. Kaitlyn Chen is back. The Golden State Warriors with a flurry of moves over the last 48 hours or so, and that includes re-signing their former third-round pick, who, yes, for better or worse, the folks out in Valhalla, I hope I said that right, Valhalla they have been obsessed with Kaitlyn Chen from the moment she was drafted from the stands at the WNBA draft. They also signed forward Chloe Bibby. They will join the team immediately and will play, or at least be active or available for tonight's game against the Dallas Wings. Of course, this also comes on the heels, Mitch, of a couple players who are going to be playing in the Euro Cup, including Julie Vanderloo. And so because of that, the Valkyries had to shift their roster a little bit because they needed to make space and ensure they have enough players to play. But happy to see Kaitlyn Chen back in Golden State, back in the WNBA. Once again, just promotes our agenda that larger rosters, more teams are needed. A G League, Upshot League, we need you. Just this idea of there are a lot of very talented women's basketball players who are on the street right now just simply because there are not enough roster spots.
Yeah, I think I saw a clip where Gino Auriemma is apparently going to tonight's Dallas Wings Golden State Valkyries game. And I'm very looking forward to just the captures of like his body language and reactions to some of the not so great to look at basketball that the Dallas Wings play.
We're going to be getting to that. Don't you worry, folks.
He said something to the effect of like, he thought that Golden State was like the best story in the league this year. And they've been playing great lately, an expansion team. I've whacked my finger and criticized Golden State many a times, but they're, like I said, I think last week, they are starting to, I think, show some real proof of concept, and they are starting to figure things out. They're 5-5. They might be 6-5 after once you listen to this, depending on how tonight's game against the Wings go. But yeah, it's been a great story for the Valkyries, and I think it's cool to see Kaitlyn Chen getting another crack at making a roster.
All right. I can't hold it in anymore, especially since you referenced the Dallas Wings. That's this week's starting five. Now it is time to take a look at what's the beef. I thought that we addressed this last week, Mitch. I don't think we can address it enough. So first I will have a ceremonial reading that then you will let the listeners know where this is coming from.
Okay.
Quote, this is from Wednesday. It would be one thing if the on the court product was just bad, but it's the fact that every press conference quote sounds like Matthew McConaughey playing a yoga instructor / camp counselor turned basketball coach at the spur of the moment.
That is from our friends at No Cap Space. I believe that was one of their Vibes Checks newsletter. As I was reading it, I just captured that snippet and sent it to Mia. I believe that was from Chantel Powell, who does great work over there at No Cap Space. But that I loved that description of
our boy Chris K. If you couldn't tell who the Matthew McConaughey yoga instructor is.
Yes. There's much criticism that is warranted for Chris Koklanis. But there was a big clip going around over the weekend of him and Dejanay Carrington. And what game is this from? This is they played the Las Vegas Aces. This is, a
game that they led most of the way, might I add.
Right. This is late in the game. And I just want to be clear, I'm on Koklanis' side here. You watch the clip and your initial reaction is why isn't he listening to Dejanay? But if you watch it a couple of times and really study what he's doing, it's clear that he's wasting time, and he's looking at his assistants and his staff who are checking in real time, it looks like to me, on iPads. If the play is worth challenging, the one that Dejanay Carrington is screaming at him about, please challenge us, please challenge, the whole thing. He's not listening to her because he has people on the sidelines who are watching it back in real time. And I think he knows that he's going to get better advice from them. And so it's pretty clear to me, in that clip, he's looking at them. You can see him bouncing the ball before he gives it to the official. He's kind of trying to kill some time and milk the clock a little bit. And then it looks like he gets a signal that nah, man, this is not worth challenging. We're not winning this. Okay. So then he moves on. The inbound happens. Meanwhile, Dejanay is still screaming. And so the Wings essentially have to play 4-on-5, and they have to foul Jackie Young at the rim because Dejanay did not guard the inbounds. And I just think that that speaks to the larger disconnect in this locker room. I think there's a disconnect and maybe a broken relationship between Dejanay Carrington and Chris Koklanis. That you lost a game in this way, essentially. This sequence of events led to you losing to the game eventually. And it's not going good in Dallas, as we may have predicted on this podcast, maybe for not the reasons that we thought, but it's not going great.
4-on-5. We don't call this segment "What's the Beef" for nothing. I feel like they literally win the award every single week, Mitch. But ultimately, I think what's going to be even more fascinating is there has been so much conversation since the Dallas Wings drafted Paige Beckers about a trade opportunity with regards to Arike Ogunbowale. And you have 2 point guards, which really means you have none. two very ball dominant guards. Is Arike the next out of town? Hot take. Dejanay Carrington may force her way out of town. Also a hot take. She's dating Alyssa Smith, who's also in the starting five, or at the very least in the rotation in Dallas. Could they both force their way out? And now all of a sudden, they already won What's the Beef for the year, even though it's June 17th.
Yeah, it's not great. In kind of my scrolling and stuff over the weekend, I found this other piece of information that I thought was interesting. This is from I believe it's a Substack called Wings Bulletin, and so it just has. I'll just read it. So when Teeter and McCown walked off the court without staying for the team huddle after the first game of the season, Kurt Miller was the person who addressed the team in the next practice while emphasizing professionalism and to not do that again after Chris Koklanis discussed highlights from practice. So you now have the GM intervening, and this is the first game of the season. So this is a month ago where the GM feels like he has to intervene because he feels like the players are disrespecting his handpicked head coach. I found that to be really weird. Just talking about kind of an on-court product and how this thing is not working at all. Dejanay Carrington, this was a topic of conversation on Twitter as well. Her on-off numbers this year, minus 27.5. Minus 27.5. Arike Ogunbowale, minus 5.8. Melissa Smith, minus 9.1. I think there's just so many things wrong with this Dallas Wings team, who are now 1-11, might be 1-12 after you listen to this, depending on how things go with Golden State. But like every time I watch them or see little clips of them, in practice and stuff or whatever, it just seems like to me like far and away the person on this team who has their head on the straightest and is the most professional and cares the most about winning is Paige Beckers. And Paige Beckers can't be the head coach, and Paige Beckers can't play 5 positions. So I just feel like I don't know where this comes to a head. I kind of think that the first thing that's going to happen before Chris Koklanis is fired, because he was handpicked by Kurt Miller. Let's remember that. The team hired Kurt Miller as the GM, and he hired Chris Koklanis, who used to work for him at previous stops. I feel like they're going to make some trades. They're going to move some faces off this roster and bring some faces on and maybe try to right the ship before they fire him. And I don't know if that's the right move or the wrong move.
Right.
I just don't think that the way this roster is currently constructed works at all with the style that they're trying to play.
But who constructed that roster?
Kurt Miller. Right.
And there it is.
And I just, this is the first time that Kurt Miller has been in a role where he's totally in the front office. He's hit some speed bumps, let's say.
That's the beef of the week. It's What's the Beef. Before we get to this week's main event, I do want to tell you a little bit about our friends at the Sports Podcast Festival. It is back for a second year, folks. August 23rd at the Rialto in Raleigh. Our friends Ovius and Gilio will be there. Split Zone Duo. Shout out to Richard Johnson and company. And Big Screen Sports. Tickets are $59. And of course, you can get yours now at eTix or therialto.com. That's the Sports Podcast Festival at eTix. therialto.com. I know Mitch Northam already got his tickets. He's ready to go.
Yes, I will be there. You can come hang out with me at the Sports Podcast Festival. I also think apparently there is a pre-night show as well. It's going to be at Bond Brothers in Cary. I believe it is presented by our friend Matt Brown at Extra Points, and it involves the Hand in the Dirt podcast with our friend Michael Felder. So check that out as well as you are. If you're going to come in town for the weekend for the Sports Podcast Festival, you can go to 2 really fun events and hang out with some of your favorite folks in the sports podcast and college football space, which should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we may not be on the big poster just yet, but Mitch will be there. So if you are a fan of the Women's Basketball Podcast and you're in the Triangle August 23rd, I will probably be subject to 120-degree heat in Miami because the Jacksonville Jaguars are playing at the Miami Dolphins that day. That or I will be watching from the comfort of my couch after sweating it out earlier that week down in, I guess, what's that? Palm Beach Gardens, whatever it's called, where Hard Rock Stadium
I
is.
will not be anywhere near the state of Florida in the month of August.
Yeah, I will be living it. I will be living the gimmick. All right, it's time for this week's main event, Mitch. I told you as we were getting ready to record tonight's show that, everyone else is doing grades 1 month into the season. A lot of other people do power rankings weekly. We're going to do power rankings monthly here in this WNBA season. And so this is going to be our first installment of the Women's Basketball Podcast's women's or WNBA power rankings for the 2025 season. I'll ask you this, Mitch, because I think the two teams off the top of my power ranking and arguably the bottom 3 to 4 are kind of obvious. And so it's that middle part of the power ranking I think that the listeners are probably most interested. So you tell me, do we want to start at the top or do you want to start at the bottom with our friend Chris K and company?
Let's start at the top.
Okay. All right. I like that. So let's start at the top. You tell me, Mitch, who is your number one team in your 2025 1 month in power ranking?
It's close, but I would take the Liberty over the Lynx right now. I just think the Liberty have more talent. And I think they're, just playing at a better level and a better kind of pace right now. They did stumble against the Fever, the return of Kaitlyn Clark, all that good stuff. I think they're going to get back on track this week. They do have a pretty tough schedule coming up. Against the Dream and against the Mercury, and then at Seattle to start a 4-game road swing after that. So we might see the Liberty kind of stumble here. I think this is going to be a little bit of a test for them. But I like them a little bit more than the Lynx right now.
I would agree with that sentiment. I just think, to our point about bus drivers, I think the Liberty have more players on their roster who can go off any single night and can dictate the pace of play on the floor, whether that be Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, Jonquel Jones, and Natasha Cloud, for what it's worth, has looked like, albeit she did not look like it against the Indiana Fever, one of the better point guards in the sport through 1 month of the season. So yes, I would also put the Liberty at the top. I would have the Lynx second. Now this is where we have some fun. I have the Atlanta Dream third, and I'm not afraid to admit it. You said you think Alicia Gray should be getting credit for being in the conversation for MVP of the league 1 month into the season. Our friend Carl Semesco and a staff that, quite frankly, they got to the W like later than this year's rookie class. Like, I think Tahina Pau probably at least had a hotel room in Atlanta prior to the crew down from Florida Gulf Coast that followed Carl Semesco after the collegiate season ended. Shout out Chelsea Lyles, who was the coach for 5 months after Carl left. I think Tahina had a hotel room before Chelsea did. And that's where I just think that, well, yes, a lot of people believe that this was going to happen, that staff would follow him at some point in time. I don't think they're getting enough credit. To our conversation earlier of Fee Collier's not getting enough credit, I don't think Carl and this staff are getting enough credit for what they have been able to do to not push that 3-point shooting agenda that so many thought would be the core principle of what their team looked like in the WNBA. They haven't pushed it, but they've almost just so seamlessly integrated into the game of traditional post players like Brianna Jones and Brittany Griner. It's been a sight to behold.
Yeah, I think like the threes are falling for them, but like you mentioned, like they haven't completely abandoned post play. Like Brianna Jones is playing well, Brittany Griner is playing well. And then at the same time, on Sunday in their win over the Mystics, they made a franchise record 18 3-pointers. Also, I just want to bring it back to our season preview where we made some predictions, and Ryan Howard is the leader in 3-pointers made right now with 36 in the WNBA.
9 in one game, WNBA record, folks.
Yeah, I think that right now, I think Carl Semesco is your front runner for Coach of the Year. Just the way that, I know Atlanta was kind of trending in the right direction at times last season, but we never considered them as like a contender or anything like that. And the way that, they've kind of revamped this roster and the way that they're playing right now, like I think he looks like the Coach of the Year at the moment. It's working. It's working well. I would agree with you. I would have them at number 3. And then I would probably, I think the standings like can be a little bit deceiving. I think I would put the Fever at number
I would too.
4 over Phoenix.
I
Just
can't
because,
quit them. I can't. I hate that we're prisoners of the moment, but I would put them 4 too.
yeah. I think now that Kaitlyn Clark's back, like we're going to really start to see like what this Fever team is made of, and I think that if she had not missed any time, their record would be a lot better than it currently is. That's not to knock Phoenix at all. I think they're playing really well, and they're about to start getting more healthy as well with Kalia Copper and Alyssa Thomas. And Natasha Mack all returning from injuries here over the past couple of days. So I think that would be my top 5.
Yeah, I would agree with that top 5. I think that there's a clear separation. And again, maybe if Kaitlyn Clark hadn't missed time, maybe the Fever are more competitive in those 3 or 4 matchups now with the Atlanta Dream. I just think they're a really bad matchup for Indiana. But I think that it's definitively those 2 teams at the top that were undefeated until this past weekend. Then it's the weird Dream Fever. They're bad matchups for each other, but they pretty much have handled everyone outside of Minnesota and New York. Then it's the Mercury, who I would give the nod over Seattle, Mitch, just because they're not fully healthy. They're younger, and I think their ceiling is higher, just like why I would put the Fever 4 is because of the ceiling. And then I would put Seattle. And even then, I still have questions about the sustainability of that team, just because it's all these veteran pieces that you know and you love, but you're like, how do they actually work together? I would almost equate it, and maybe it's just because I saw them over the weekend in Boston. It's the New York Yankees trotting out a lineup that includes Paul Goldschmidt and Cody Bellinger. I don't think we've ever made a Major League Baseball reference on this podcast, but it's literally the 2025 New York Yankees, not the 2018 NL All-Star team. The 2025 New York Yankees trotting out names from 6-7 years ago who were all-stars and saying, yeah, we're competitive. And yeah, you're competitive, but I really don't know how high your ceiling is. So that's why I would have the Storm 6th, albeit the fact that they're going to make the postseason and they have been one of the more consistent teams up to this point, even if it's not aesthetically pleasing.
See, I think I would put the Valkyries 6.
Ooh, I like that.
Just because, I mean,
wait. Think about it. What about Washington? If we're going to talk about the Valkyries, we got to talk about our friends.
I'm not ready to go there yet with the Mystics.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's fine.
But the Valkyries, I mean, they just beat Seattle 76-70. And I think that they're a team, like, in terms of just like power rankings and stuff and like who's up and who's down, they've won 3 in a row. I think they're trending in the right direction. I think there's a good chance that they make it 4-0 tonight against our friends in Dallas. So I think I would put probably Golden State at number 6.
I like that.
And then I might put Vegas at number 7.
Yeah.
Just because I think a little bit like the Fever thing. I mean, there's a couple of things with the Aces going on, right? I think like the Wings, they probably need to make a move at some point and get some fresh faces on that roster and get some pieces out that don't really work, as I've talked about before. But also like the Fever, like they are dealing with a key injury to their best player, so their record maybe is not as great as it should be. And then I would go Seattle.
Yeah, I do like that thinking. So let's do that. So Valkyrie 6th, Aces 7th, because it's if we're gonna consider Indiana an incomplete because of the Kaitlyn Clark missed 5 games and Asia Wilson missing significant time. By the way, Asia, I know it's a concussion, but rocking the sunglasses in the suite, I'm just like, oh, okay, we know you have a concussion, but yikes, I hope it's not anything more severe than that. But no, I it's so hard for me to I don't want to say quit Las Vegas, but this idea of just writing them off completely. And certainly, Jewel Lloyd had 21 points the other night, and that's the most she's had as a member of the Aces. So maybe she's finding something. I don't know how much I believe in this backcourt combination with her and Jackie, and how do you rotate? And
yeah.
I don't know how much I believe in it, but I do believe in Becky Hammon. I love the fact that, and we talked about it last week, I loved the beef that she just basically said, I'm not going to coach effort, and we have an effort problem right now. And I refuse to believe that this talented of a roster is going to continue to have an effort problem unless the problems in that locker room are much bigger than we know.
Right. Yeah, I do. There's something that has to happen with the Aces if they really want to get back to contending for a title again. I just don't see this team as currently constructed making a run to the finals. I'm not sure if it's, getting a true legitimate center in there or if it's shuffling the backcourt up a little bit. Whether you're talking about Chelsea Gray, Jackie Young, or Jewel Lloyd. I mean, in theory, like, those are three of the best guards in the league. But there's only one ball, and sometimes it's not Madden franchise mode where you just kind of all-star roster construct. It doesn't always work that way like a video game.
And it did for a couple years. That's why they won 2 titles. Not working so much this season. Okay,
Indeed.
so I think we're in consensus. So we got the top 2 teams, the Liberty and the Lynx at the top. Then we've got the weird Atlanta Dream, Indiana Fever dichotomy. Then we've got this middle ground of Phoenix, Golden State, the Las Vegas Aces, who have underperformed up to this point, but they remain having one of the highest ceilings in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Seattle Storm, aka the 2025 New York Yankees. Then I think in the next tier, it's firmly the Washington Mystics and then the Sparks. And that is our young, inconsistent, we want to believe because we like the pieces. Kelsey Plum may eventually lead the league in scoring if Napheesa Collier comes back down to earth so that Mitch makes his money. We'll get to that here in just a second. The Washington Mystics have one of the most exciting young cores, potentially the number 1 and number 2 front runners for Rookie of the Year. I think firmly that's that next tier. And I hope one of them breaks through to the middle tier at the very least.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I would say firmly Mystic Sparks right there. Yeah, both kind of similarly constructed. I mean, they're both these young teams for the most part, except you got Brittany Sykes on one, Kelsey Plum on the other, who are both playing really, really well. And then some young pieces around them. Some of them work, some of them don't. But they're both fun to watch, I think. And yeah, like you said, like we want to believe, we want you to be better, but you're just not quite there yet. So yeah, I would go, Mystic Sparks. And then kind of in the same vein, I think the Connecticut Sun are also in that group, but I maybe would put the Chicago Sky ahead of them.
Oh, okay. So I'm in the same boat because I do think sustainability in terms of the roster construction, I think the Sun go next for me in the power ranking, but I think that the Chicago Sky have Angel Reese. And as good as Marina Mabrey has been at times, as much as I want to believe in the young pieces of the Connecticut Sun, I probably believe in Angel Reese more.
Yeah, I think the Sun know exactly what they are. Like as we've talked about, like the way that team is constructed, like where basically your best 2 vets are Marina Mabrey and Tina Charles. I mean, Tina Charles is there to chase her records and to kind of mentor the Utes, as it were. The Anissa Morrows on that roster and the Sinai Rivers on that roster. And then Marina Mabrey is just, at this point, every time I open Twitter, I see a new TikTok of her and Sinai Rivers. She looks like she's having fun, and so shout out to that. But like I think they all know like what this season is about. Like we're not going to be all that good. So let's just have fun and let's bring these young guys along, and then we'll get a high draft pick, and then we'll see what happens next year.
Yeah. Whereas the Chicago Sky, like they know what they are, and they know it's not sustainable roster construction, but they're like, whatever, we're here, so we're just gonna settle for what our ceiling is, which is not all that high.
Yeah, I think the Sky have some regrets. I think it was maybe not a good idea to fire your head coach that all the players liked. Number one, I think it was not a good idea to trade your lottery pick, which turned out to be Sonia Citron, who is having a great season so far. And by the way, you could use some guard depth. I know Ariel Atkins, like this, shiny fancy piece, but like Sonia Citron is pretty good too. And I think maybe would fit even a little bit better on that roster. So they have Angel Reese. Other than that, like there's a lot of things to just try and figure out there. The Sky and the Wings are both sort of in that same group where like you have these young stars, you can't quite figure out how to put all the pieces together around them. I think for the Sky, that's Angel Reese. Like you clearly have this player that belongs in this league and can be a building block for a really good team, but you haven't figured out yet how to put the good pieces around her. And then for the Wings, as we have discussed at length, that player is Paige Beckers. We'll see.
And I want to give you hope, Wings fans. I want to tell you that you are the 2024 first half Indiana Fever. but I cannot tell you that in good faith, because even with the PE teacher last year in Indianapolis, Caitlin Clark was really running the show. And ultimately, she just found this synergy with Aaliyah Boston that I think was going to overcome all evils. And Kelsey Mitchell and Lexi Hull were able to find their stroke in the second half of the season. And so I think unless something dramatically changes in terms of Dejanay Carrington's relationship with the head coach and availability on the floor, and Arike Ogunbowale returns to the form we saw in the first half of the 2024 season in Dallas, this is what you are for now. And it sucks for Paige Beckers, who did have a 30-piece the other night.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things like that happen with Indiana that we're just not seeing manifest in Dallas, where like number one, Paige Beckers does not really have a post that is the caliber of player that Aaliyah Boston is to create that sort of type of relationship with, right? And the other thing is that like, you know, you saw at some point last year during the Fever season, Kelsey Mitchell kind of recognize this is your team. I understand that. I am taking a step back. I will be open over here and I will be running along the arcs. And when you want to feed me the ball, I'm happy to take shots or to run the offense or whatever. But like, this is your team. You are the bus driver. And we haven't really seen Arike Ogunbowale 100% give way to that yet, I don't think. And I'm not sure if we're going to. Like, she has never been that type of player ever in her career. So we'll see. Sorry, Wings fans. Maybe you can get Lauren Betts. I don't know.
Yeah, because, you know, or maybe you get Olivia Miles and then you've got to deal with having 2 point guards again and trying to figure out with 2 ball dominant players what you're supposed to do, because Lauren Betts will go to the Chicago Sky and then they'll just have all the tall players, and it's got to work, right? It's got to work. Yeah. We have all the tall players, and so we have to win the games. Just to recap, this 1 month into the WNBA season power ranking by the Women's Basketball Cup podcast, at the top, the New York Liberty, followed by the Minnesota Lynx, the Atlanta Dream. In the 4 spot, the Indiana Fever, rounding out our top 5, the Phoenix Mercury, the Golden State Valkyries, perhaps a little bit of a surprise. They are 6th in their first year of existence. The Las Vegas Aces, 7, the Seattle Storm, 8, the Washington Mystics, 9, the Los Angeles Sparks, 10, the Connecticut Sun, 11, Chicago Sky, 12, maybe the Sky are 11, maybe the Sun are 12, the Dallas Wings, 13th. In this week's power ranking. Sorry, Wings fans. We tried. We tried. All right, sorry, Mitch. Dallas. Let's maybe we can make the people of Dallas some money, possibly, or at the very least, we can tell them what other games that they should be betting on this week.
Yeah, it's time for making money with Mitch. Also, I went back and looked because I just wanted to look up what my record was during the college season. It was 27-24. So
I knew we were around 500.
We came out a little bit over 500. So overall, we made money, and I think that's a good thing. We are 4-2 on the season so far this year, so we are over 500, which is also a good thing. Starting off, this is Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern on League Pass. Or your local channel if you live in Phoenix or Connecticut, I assume. But I'm going to take Phoenix -3.5 at the Sun. I think that line is kind of low. I think Connecticut is maybe just getting a little bit of a benefit of it out there, being the home team to keep things close. But I think Phoenix is really, really good, and I don't think that Connecticut is any good at all. And the Phoenix is getting healthier, so I think they should be able to win that game by 4 points or more fairly comfortably.
Here for it, and I'm especially here for the next 2 picks.
Yes, we're going back to back here. So this is Thursday, 10 p.m. Eastern on Amazon Prime. This is Indiana at Golden State. I'm taking the Fever -1.5 on the road. I said all positive things about the Valkyries. I think they are heading in the right direction, but I think the Fever now with Kaitlyn back in the fold are just playing like the team we thought they could be. And so I think they're going to win pretty handily on the road here.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated.
It's pretty thin.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, Kate Martin. We love the sisterhood and the rivalry, but I think Kaitlyn gets the best of her as well in Valhalla. I'm fascinated by the front court matchup. I'm also fascinated by the Temi Fagbenle revenge game. I am most fascinated to see, again, this notion from some Fever fans of, well, Natasha Howard is hot or cold. Should we be going to more of a small ball lineup? But the front court has at times been a strength of Golden State during this winning streak.
Yeah. Is Temi going to Eurobasket?
I don't know. That's a good question. I didn't look. I know.
Question.
Yeah, Van Loo is. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
I
She's
don't
been
know.
playing well though. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, revenge game potentially for Temi. Yeah, we get the Kate Martin, Caitlin Clark thing happening. Maybe some good pregame content out of that. The other one that I'm taking Indiana in, this is Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. I'm taking Indiana on the road again, plus 2.5 at Las Vegas. I'm kind of surprised that Vegas is favored here. Not just because, like, I know they're the home team and, you usually get a favorite that way. But it's unclear to me if A'ja Wilson's going to play in this game. And if that is the case, the Fever should win by much more than 2.5 points. So I like the Fever to go back to back there on the road, getting wins at Golden State and Las Vegas.
I don't want to speak out of turn, but so the Fever, again, we're recording this on Tuesday, the 17th. The Fever will play tonight against the Lynx. Or, excuse me, not the Fever. The Aces will play tonight against the Lynx. Then they'll play Seattle on Friday, and then this game on Sunday. We still don't think A'ja will be back by Sunday. I would.
Well, I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, concussions are different for everyone.
I wouldn't think she'll. I don't think she's obviously she's been ruled out of Tuesday's game. I think she doesn't play Friday. I'm fascinated to see if she plays Sunday, because I think she will. But again, concussions they're tricky. I also think that the folks in the desert are banking on, they're figuring things out. But I also think that if A'ja comes back into the lineup, the logical answer is, now she's going to fix their issues. And then you also say, well, they weren't playing all that well when she was available.
Sure.
And so I just still think the Aces have problems, and I don't think it's going to be rectified with A'ja Wilson's return or 1+ week without her.
Yeah, I like this line either way. I mean, even if A'ja plays, I would take Indiana at plus 2.5. I would take them, at minus 2.5 if she's not playing at all. So this is a good line to jump on now if you can, I think.
And so to recap, this week's Making Money with Mitch, the Phoenix Mercury 3.5-point favorites Wednesday night at the Connecticut Sun, Indiana a 1.5-point favorite on the road Thursday night at Golden State, and finally Indiana 2.5-point dogs. Ooh, Mitch says take them.
I have some breaking news.
Oh, breaking news in the middle of the recording. What do we got?
Isaiah James will start for the Dallas Wings tonight.
So who's on the bench?
We have Paige Beckers, Ricky Mawale, Isaiah James, Maisha Hines, Allen, and Alyssa Smith in the starting lineups. I believe that means Denise Carrington is not starting.
What's the beef, Mitch?
We'll see how that goes. But
we love it.
Shout out to Isaiah James.
Shout out to Isaiah James. Shout out to Chris K. We love to complain about you on this pod from time to time. But you know what? Again, you've got more job security than Dejanay. So lean all the way in, brother man. Say, I'm going to play the young guns who are listening to me, who are not arguing with me and forcing my team to play 5-on-4 basketball.
Indeed.
Let's hit last call before we get on out of here, Mitch. I do want to shout out, first and foremost, this one's not on the rundown. Did you see Caitlin Clark's back and forth with Cheez-It on Instagram?
I did not. I missed this.
This was amazing.
Okay.
So Cheez-It comments on, it was some Fever, like the official Cheez-It, like the snack. The official account comments on a Fever post, or it was a Kaitlyn post or something like that. And they just comment, "Let's go," with a fire emoji. And Kaitlyn replies, "At Cheez-It, squad needs a lot of Cheez-Its to the facility, please. All the flavors, duos, and extra toasty for me." Within just minutes, Cheez-It replied, "At Caitlin Clark," on it with the salute emoji. As someone who eats a lot of Cheez-Its, it is my self-proclaimed go-go food. If I'm video editing or need to type out an assignment really quick, I love it. I'm glad that Cheez-Its, they have joined the women's basketball brand. I'm here for it.
I'm a big fan of the white cheddar Cheez-Its.
Ooh, yeah, those are good. I like the Snapped. Have you had them yet? The new ones that are like crackery, but they're like different shapes. Yeah, highly recommend.
I've had the grooves. They're like thinner.
Ooh, yes.
Kind of like those are good. Shout out to those.
Shout out to the Grooves. Shout out to the Grooves. Shout out to the duos. Also, shout out to ESPN for actually giving us the real viewership numbers for the Fever's victory over the Liberty on Saturday. I don't even know where the 20 million number was coming from outside of the 2023 national title game. But okay, whoever started that, good for you. Yes, it was a historic game. 2.2 million average viewers, a 2.8 million viewer peak. That was the third most watched WNBA game on ABC ever. So yes, it was a historic game. I'm just glad we got the real numbers because I was tempted to write in the rundown before this was announced earlier today. Would the real ratings please stand up because I'm tired of the misinformation.
The real ratings.
The real ratings.
When you put your game on ABC, it's going to draw a big number, especially if Caitlin Clark and Brianna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu are playing in that game.
Who would have thunk? Two more from me, from Feverland. Shout out Stacey Dales of the NFL Network. Stacey went on a diatribe about how great Kaitlyn is. So, Stacey, if you ever want to come on the pod, I know you got the NFL dead period too for the next 6 weeks. So come on. We can have a conversation. More than happy to support the agenda and discuss. And welcome to the church of Kaitlyn. I also would like to shout out the 5 Fever fans who traveled from Hong Kong to Indianapolis. And now Lexi Hull is making it her mission to go to Hong Kong, evidently, this offseason. So shout out to Hong Kong. We global here in the WNBA.
Shout out to Hong Kong.
Shout out to Hong Kong. And then one more, Dallas Wings fans. I'm sorry. We really didn't hit the Maddie Siegrist news. I thought that one was, I mean, a player who you and I were so high on in our preseason Wubby Awards, Mitch. Really excited. Again, if we could say a couple positive things about the Dallas Wings, I think that's allowed on this podcast. Maddie Siegrist's development and ball movement off the ball significantly improved this season. She was the one piece that I felt like really worked opposite Paige Beckers, and now they're without her. The report is that she will come back from this foot injury later this season. I think what's even more jarring is, I don't know how true they are, but there's some reports online that Maddie Siegrist reported this discomfort in her foot, but they had her play. I hope that's not the case, but hopefully we do see her back on the floor at some point this summer.
Yeah, Maddie Siegrist is awesome. A player I wrote about quite a bit when she was in college at Villanova and, scoring a boatload of points. I think that I'm hopeful that things are going to work out for her in the WNBA.
Let's hope. Anything you got for us coming this week on SB Nation or beyond?
I don't have a ton to plug, but last week was kind of a busy week for me over at SB Nation. On the basketball front, I did write about 2 kind of scheduling things. I wrote about the tournament I talked about last week that's going to happen in Las Vegas. And then I wrote about USF's non-conference schedule a bit because they are going to host UConn, South Carolina, and Duke in Tampa this year. Which is pretty cool that Jose Fernandez and the Bulls are going to get all those major teams coming to visit them in Tampa. And then I wrote about softball's transfer portal a bunch. And I also did an interview with Catherine Legg ahead of her second NASCAR Cup Series start in Mexico City. So you can go check all that out over at Breakaway.
Head over to Breakaway. Mitch is going to break away. He's going to head out on vacation later this week. But we, of course, will keep it locked on SB Nation, and you better keep it locked here at OG Triangle Media and the Women's Basketball Podcast. He is Mitch. I am Mia, saying we will catch you next week.
Deuces.